Everyone, welcome to another episode of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman. What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, it's good. It's good. Who's converted over to Blue Sky? Who's left Twitter and gone to Blue Sky? that's
Nobody.
the that's
Nobody's
the
actually left.
that's the wave these days, man. Yeah, nobody has actually left, right? They've all gone over, but they're still on Twitter as well. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I mean, it's kind of a hellscape over there, honestly, but I still enjoy it. And for some reason, like you can't put your finger on it quite, but the UI is like so much better. I don't know what they're doing with the Twitter, but it's like crack cocaine. You can't leave. But I did want to say shout out to the Discord just because we always wait till the end. But I love that. I love those people in there, and I mean they're the life of this pod at this point, and just want more people to join. So big shout out to the Discord. I feel like it just keeps us rolling, and there's always something going on in there. So yeah, shout out to those people in there.
Yeah. It's like if you want to leave Twitter for understandable reasons, just make a Discord.
Just make a Discord. Yeah,
Then
it's
you
a,
don't
it's
have to.
yeah, it's a lot less toxic. That's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Uh, what up, Eric? Happy to
What's
have you here,
up?
brother.
All right. So let's hop into some news and some nonsense. So this is good. Where's Waldron? So he's out, right?
He's gone.
Huh?
Fired.
Yeah,
He's
fired. Shane
gone.
Waldron
Yeah.
fired. Yeah, and we should have known this. I should correct what I said before. Jordan Addison was the one that warned us about it. It was JSN that warned us about it, and he's not. Maybe he's just not this offensive guru that people kind of wanted to paint him out to be a couple of years ago. That Bears offense should be humming, right? I mean, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I know they got a rookie quarterback, but he's first overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
You would expect a whole lot more than what they've been putting out. So hopefully with Shane Waldron gone, we'll see Keenan Allen step up a little bit, DJ Moore, Caleb Williams. Hopefully the whole offense gets a little bit of spark. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it can only be good at this point based on what we've seen. I mean, I'm sure you've caught some of the clips of the film out there on Twitter. If you're not watching the film yourself, it's just terrible play calls in key situations, and the scheme is just not there. So yeah, I think it needed to happen, of course. But Keenan Allen, word is Shane Waldron is too nice. I don't know exactly what that means, but maybe just not really getting the message across or holding everybody accountable the way they should be, which, you watch the games and you see DJ Moore walking off the field, you see guys taking plays off, not blocking their hardest, those kind of things. And that's a trickle down effect, probably top down, So yeah, I think it was a move that needed to happen, and hopefully we see an uptick here because it has only been a decline from the start of the season. And I, guys like Roma Dunze, like they haven't really done much, and their stock's kind of dropping. I think perception wise, I don't know if like price is actually dropping, but like they've had some good games and they've played well. Like some of these players individually have played well. So I'm hoping they can string some stuff together here towards the end of the season and get that like second half of the year rookie bump that we see often from both Caleb and Rome. But yeah, this is just a move that needed to happen. And honestly, we'd probably need to see more heads roll by the end of the season, before the end of the season or in the off season. We'll see what happens.
Back to the DJ Moore thing. Didn't he step out like after he had actually stepped out of bounds to take himself out of that play?
I'm actually not 100% sure on that. I know that he said that, or there is word, I don't know if he said this, but there's word that he was kind of injured or whatever, and that's why he left the field.
Oh, okay.
That was what I heard. I hadn't heard the stepped out of bounds thing, but either way, he looked discontent as he walked off the field. He looked kind of just like, this ain't happening anyway. So, maybe it was partly he did step out, who knows. But you just usually don't see those things anyway. You know what I mean? Even if you step out, you still kind of engage with the play. And that wasn't the only sign of things, obviously. I mean, DJ Moore has been unhappy pretty much the entire season. So it's nothing new from him, really.
All right, next one. This is good news. I mean, at least they could see what we've all been saying. Not saying that we're smarter than like NFL GMs and coaches and stuff, but I think a lot of the time the fan base gets it right.
We're pretty close.
Just facts, not always, but sometimes we get it right. And so Anthony Richardson is named starter for the Colts for the rest of the season. although they said Flacco was going to be starting for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is for this kid, for this man, whatever, for the player, hopefully this is true, right? You give him a full shot for the rest of the season. Like, what possibly can he gain by watching Joe Flacco play games? He needs reps, man. He needs reps.
Yeah, I mean, some people did say, Joe Flacco threw a bunch of picks or whatever early on in the game, and then he kind of rallied back a little bit in terms of his play and, getting guys the ball and stringing some consistent plays together. And so, like, I kind of agree. Like, obviously, we were in the Discord and we were joking about it. Like, what is Anthony Richardson really learning from this? But I mean, he could have, soaked up some stuff from this, and maybe it was partly like the Bryce Young thing. And also knowing the matchups that were coming up, some pretty tough defenses, maybe just kind of get his confidence back or don't ruin his confidence anymore. Maybe that was the idea. But just the messaging coming out from the Colts was terrible this whole time. They said Joe Flacco would be the starter the rest of the season. So, if we want to play that narrative, it's like that's not a great piece of evidence for the fact that they were, always going to start A-Rich again. I just think that they realized internally, probably top down as well, Jim Irsay, everybody realized like this isn't really the way to go. We got to get this kid back in there and see what we have at the very least. So, I mean, I was always on this train. I thought that he was going to start eventually again this season. And so I'm not surprised by this, but yeah, I'm happy to see him back in there. And we got to just hope, back from the dead, that he can revive his young career here. He really needs to string together a couple good games, not necessarily wins, but he just needs to string together some good games here because it's been pretty underwhelming, obviously.
All right. So next thing, Jalen Waddle. So what's going on with Waddle, and are you buying? So it's kind of hard to. I mean, I know even last year was a little lackluster, I think, for a little while, but yeah, I think I would be buying if people are selling, right? If people are really that down on him, I think we have to take into account that Tua is probably not like 100% in the head right now. He's probably still going through some stuff, like after what he's had. And then Waddle having to play with a backup quarterback, a bunch of different backup quarterbacks.
Evidence he keeps targeting Jonnu Smith.
So I don't know. I mean, is it a Tua problem? Is it a Waddle problem? Is it a coaching problem? But for whatever reason, Waddle's not getting the workload that we would like to see. But I still believe in the talent of Jalen Waddle. I think that if people are trying to move off of him based on what's going on so far this season, I'm willing to buy just because he's young. He's done it before. And there's a possibility he's not even with that team for much longer. Like, I do have interest in Jalen Waddle, and I'm not all that concerned. I just kind of wish they would figure out what's going on. But I know right now, like with Tua, with this first week back, I think like his A-dot ball placement and where he was trying to push the ball before he has in seasons past has changed a little bit. And I don't know if that's because their coach is trying to protect him scheme-wise early on when he's coming back. But what do you see on film? Is there something with Waddle that you think is off, or is just a scheme thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would attribute it a little bit more to a scheme thing. I think the running backs being more involved in the passing game this year, A-Chain really coming on, I think has hurt his role, and obviously getting Jonnu Smith in there, making the joke a minute ago, but still he's definitely the best tight end talent they've had in a while, right? Outside of like a Gesicki or something, but he can obviously do a little bit more, not that much, a little bit more in the blocking game, but definitely a threat in the receiving game and a guy that Tua has been looking to quite often. Obviously they're trying to get the ball out of Tua's hand immediately, right? Like they're not really trying to wait for these developing routes downfield and all that, but that said, like Waddle is getting open. Like he's still really dynamic route runner. He dropped a ball the other night that may have impacted the rest of his game. Like it was wide open, like 30-yard catch, and then we didn't really see much from him. So I don't know if there's like, losing confidence in him from the Tua side of things. But I mean, just the numbers are so stark. Just looking through through 10 games last season and this season. Like this season, it's like 1.57 yards per hour. And last season, it was like 2.3. Yeah. It's like a vastly different player. And so, like I don't know exactly what's going on. It doesn't feel or seem like when I look at it, like it's his play on the field necessarily. He looks engaged and all that. I mean, the ADOT's down a little bit too. So I think it's just I think we can, again, go back to kind of the scheme and what, obviously Tua being out this year is going to impact the time he was out this year is going to impact his numbers, but as it did Tyreek Hill, obviously. But I do think, again, I think that's kind of part of, sorry, I just saw the comments in the YouTube chat, but I think it's, again, part of the scheme, and what they're trying to do is get the ball out quick, get it to the guys who are open immediately. And I think that's impacting Waddle. And like when Tua is going downfield, like he's probably, and he has been, looking Tyreek's way more often than not, so yeah. And we didn't expect Waddle to be Jonnu Smith. Yeah. I don't think it's entirely that, but it's definitely a factor.
Nobody expects to be Jonnu Smith.
Nobody does. Yeah, that's exactly right. But, to Uriah's point, getting back to kind of the dynasty value of it, and are we interested in buying him? I mean, he's sitting below Chris Olave, who has tons of injury concerns in a much worse situation. I wonder if you could get Waddle. You probably could go straight, but I wonder if you can get Waddle plus on that. Josh Jacobs in the same territory. I would love to make a move off of Jacobs for Waddle. Isaiah Pacheco. Like, there's definitely quite a few moves you can probably make here to get off of some of these kind of players for a Waddle, who I do think the future is bright. I mean, this is a 26-year-old kid. I mean, funny he is getting up there, but I think he's a buy. If we're talking buy or selling him, I would definitely say he's a buy.
Excellent, and I agree 100%. All right, Audric Estime. What is your estimation? So, Joe Lombardi.
That was good.
That was pretty good, bud. If Audric Estime will remain a top running back for the Broncos, he says, quote, if he keeps running the ball the way he did, it appears like that. He's a big, strong, tough guy. He can handle the carries. It's true. I mean, we all know that, like, it's kind of the role that we thought we would see him as, like, dude's big, right? Dude's Notre Dame, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Dude's big, dude's strong. Probably not going to be like a 3-down back. But for whatever reason, we saw a very, very decreased workload in Javonte Williams last week, and a more of an increased workload on Estime. I still don't think it was like a ton of carries, but there was, percentage-wise, it was definitely the Estime show. So I know that Jake, if he were here, he would say, hey, look, I'm looking to sell this guy as soon as he has a good game. And I think that is probably a smart move to do. But I mean, if you were on a contending roster right now and Estime's been on your taxi all season, this is just like, this is so much hopium for you right now, or at least that's the way I feel, right? Like, instead of being like, hey, I need to go push and try to like send some assets for an established running back, I'm looking at this as like, hey, I might be reloading right now for my taxi squad. And that's probably the better feeling that you could have in Dynasty, knowing, hey, this guy that I drafted in the 4th round is going to come back the last quarter of the season and help push me into the playoffs right now. So I'm jazzed about it just because I've been a big Estime fan. I thought the Dallas Cowboys should probably have drafted him. We will see.
He'd be a good fit for the Cowboys for sure. Just his play style and everything, but they seem just to have repellent for running backs for some reason. But so are you saying that on contending rosters, you'd just be happy to hold them and see what happens the second half of the season?
I mean, because what do we do? We're contending. It's week 10, right? Coming up to week 10, week 11, and we're like, okay, so we need to add something, right? If you're really trying to push. Well, in this situation, you were adding straight from your taxi squad. Like, that's a really good feeling right now. So, I mean, in no way on a contending roster where I have Estime on my taxi, am I looking to move him after a good game. Like, I'm hoping he continues to have 7 more good games.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I do kind of agree with that. And I also think that just kind of situationally, it works that way, because if you're trying to get off of him, you're probably looking for a 2nd-round pick. And I don't think anybody's giving you a 2nd-round pick right now. And that's because, like, his good game last week was 14 for 53.
Yeah, it wasn't
and, like
great, right?
3.79 yards per carry, just at the baseline, yards after contact were okay. It's just, it wasn't anything to write home about. So you're hoping that we see improvement and maybe like you get some like Tyrone Tracy 2.0 type stuff out of this guy, where he starts performing that way. giving you some decent rushing totals, some touchdowns, all that. So if he does that, you can definitely push for those seconds, those high seconds. Maybe combine him with something and go get a late first or something from some maniac out there. But yeah, for the contending teams, I'm fine holding him as well. I agree with that. For the rebuilding teams, I'm also fine holding him because I don't think he's adding a ton of points to your rebuilding team right now. And if he does do something more, you can actually get that second. I just don't think anybody's paying that right now. You know, I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I think we'd be a little bit ahead of ourselves right now to be looking to move him. So
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Let's talk some Adonai Mitchell with AD Adonai. Without Michael Pittman, which I believe he'll be without Michael Pittman this week. It's possible. Or is Pittman?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
It's possible. He's questionable. You never know with him. And he was dealing with the back. I don't think he's been ruled out or anything, though. So it's not 100%.
So, yeah, we'll just walk through this. Weeks 1 through 9 with Michael Pittman. AD Mitchell, A-dot was almost 16. Target percentage was almost 12%. Yard per route run was 1.56. Yards per route was yards per reception.
Sorry.
Yeah, 11.67. And his first read percentage was 15.3. Without Michael Pittman last week, his A-dot dropped. This is kind of crazy. His A-dot dropped to 8.5, but his target percentage went up by 5%. His yards per route run went up by half a yard to 2.03, which is good. And his yards per reception was about the same, so that's kind of cool. But his first read targets went up over 5% to 20.7%. So this is a good indication maybe to start AD if Michael Pittman is out this week. But I don't know. What else do you take from this?
That AD would be a lot better if Michael Pittman wasn't on the field.
Yeah.
If it wasn't on this team. I mean, I think we're just seeing like what AD can do. He had a great game last week too. I think he caught like 6 of 7 for like 70 yards or something like that. So, he just every time I see him on the field, like he looks great after the catch. He looks pretty solid before the catch. And so, like, I just wish we could see more of him. I wonder if they try to move off of Pittman. I know they gave him a contract recently, but, like, I wonder if they try to find a way to move on from Pittman or just get AD more playing time. Now, I think, Pittman did actually register a full practice Thursday, so very likely that he plays. But again, I wonder if they're willing to give Pittman a little bit more run. So it just seems like when Pittman is not on the field or when AD is given the opportunity to play more of the Pittman role, then he's been pretty damn good. So I guess for me, it's just kind of encouragement and confirmation that this kid is a decent player and could develop pretty well. And so if there is kind of, a Michael Pittman resurgence of sorts in terms of playing time, and we see, Mitchell not really produce over the next couple of weeks, I'm not going to be too discouraged, and I might just be on the buy train. You know what I mean? These peripherals look really good in the absence of Michael Pittman, and not saying that it's a guarantee he's not going to be there, but I think over time it's very possible. I've never been on like the Michael Pittman wide receiver one train. I've always been, he's really not that guy. He's a great role player. He's a good player. But I just wonder if Mitchell could maybe fill that role a little bit better. And so maybe over time he kind of takes over a little bit. But one way or another, I think we got a good player here. And so if we can get him at a discount, which we were trying to before this, but if we can after this, we've seen some confirmation, some encouragement. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at here. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens this week.
Kind of help you pause if you're like freaking out about the lack of production from AD, but just like kind of looking at what he's able to do given the opportunities. I think seeing these numbers and splitting up like that kind of helps you feel more comfortable holding.
Yeah.
It's kind of assurance there.
And the route running has looked really, really sharp, man. Like it does seem like he's working on his craft. We haven't heard any character concerns. He's been pretty quiet, just himself as a person, as a player, like just doesn't seem like it just seems like he's kind of taking it all on the chin and kind of working right now. And that's what you need to see and what you want to see. And so hopefully you can build some chemistry here with Anthony Richardson, because I do know that it was without Anthony Richardson, but A-Rich wants to take those shots downfield, dude. Like, he's a big play guy, and so I think they kind of fit each other pretty well. And so I'm hoping we see a little bit more of him going forward, and maybe they can build some chemistry.
Yeah. Just, rooting real hard for Anthony Richardson right now, too. So, do you see that interview where he was talking about kind of what he was thinking about while he was out and all that stuff? Like,
what the vets want to see, all that
very
stuff.
just like very mature, thoughtful response to like what he was going through over the last couple of weeks. I agree. A lot.
No, I agree, and I agree that he I like what he was saying. He's so raw and young, and even in his responses, they're pretty raw. Like, it's not as polished as you'd like it to be for a starting NFL quarterback. Just the way that he's talking about things, he clearly he's like, that's what the vets want to see, and obviously he's listening to the people around him, and he's taking it in, and so that's a great thing. But I wonder if sometimes he says too much still, a little bit too much, and doesn't say it maybe the right way and just take complete ownership of it. Like, I see what these guys are doing and I'm reacting to it, not so much like they're telling me what they want to see. And so I'm not trying to nail the kid or anything like that, but it's just, he's raw on the field. He's raw off the field. He's raw all over the place. And so this kid just needs to just be put into the fire and just left there. Cook, just cook, bro. Just develop over time and let him answer questions and let him figure himself out. And he needs the full backing of this team. So I'm hoping he gets it, man. Like, Steichtjen's he's a good offensive mind. And I think that he knows how to develop players. And so they just need to let it happen, even though it's going to be a tough go.
It will be, but I think you kind of need to do that, right? With the potential of having the guy this young, possibly if you do it right and he develops, be your franchise quarterbacks for the next decade. So,
yep. And Iston here, AD has some promise, still a rookie, should be growing with air over time. Just have to be patient. Totally agree. Yeah. Apply some patience in this game, which is very challenging. We've been talking about that in the Discord a little bit.
It's hard to do, especially this time of year where people are positioning for points. It looks really enticing to move off of these rookies for production, and it's a slippery slope there. Yeah. All right, so next one we have a comparison. I love this one. I think Bailey did this for me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So we have Marvin Harrison Jr. or wide receiver 1 Quentin Johnston. All right, so I'm assuming this just this year. So it has to be. So points per game. QJ points per game 11.6. Marvin Harrison Jr. 11.8. Target percentage 20% for QJ and 24% for Marvin Harrison Jr. Yards per route run, a 2.15 from my boy QJ. Yards per route run, 2.01 from Marvin Harrison Jr. Yards per reception, 15.1 for QJ, and then yards per reception, 15.3 for Marvin Harrison Jr. First read percentage, 22.6 for QJ, and then 27.5 for Marvin Harrison Jr. It's the same thing. They're the same guy.
It's the Spider-Man meme. Yeah. I know the way to
it's cool.
Oh man, it's worth noting that that QJ's ran basically 100 less routes than Marvin Harrison Jr. So
really?
Yes. So some of those numbers are obviously inflated for Quentin Johnston, those per route numbers especially, but that whatever. I think this more
so he's just as productive on less routes.
Sure, if he was given 100 more, I wonder what it would look like. But in the same amount of time. But it's more. I just obviously take a step back. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a much better player, just much more consistent, much better route runner in his first year. This is just rookie growing pains. Obviously, he's not getting the Malik Neighbors love necessarily, but also Malik Neighbors is really the only show in town over there, and they do have Trey McBride and a really healthy backfield and a rushing quarterback. Well, I guess you can you could label Daniel Jones that, but completely different thing when you're talking about Kyler Murray. So I think there's a lot more contextually going on there on the Marvin Harrison Jr. side. But while Quentin Johnson is running a lot less routes, he has developed a little bit. He has looked a little bit better. I do find it interesting that they're kind of on similar ground here, but really these things can be deceiving, and you got to kind of dig a little bit deeper, look at like I just kind of said, the routes run are important. And also, the film. I mean, they're just completely different players, but I do think that Quentin Johnson has a little bit more life than we gave him credit for maybe in the past, or not you, than the other folks on this pod have given him credit for in the past. I'm not out here trying to like go buy him or anything like that. Gotcha. It may actually be a decent sell point for him if you want, because people might be interested. I was actually talking to a good friend of the show, Matt, my best friend, who's in our Dynasty Underdog listener leagues, and he was like, "You think I can get a first for Quentin Johnson?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of do. I kind of do think that people might be interested in Quentin Johnson for a first, and especially if you package him with something, is kind of where the conversation was going, that you could get there." So it depends what you want to do with him, but just giving the player a little bit of credit. He caught a touchdown on 2 targets. I think he caught the 2 targets for like 30 yards last week. He's had some other boom games, some bigger games. But in this offense, like I just wonder, like, how much more are they going to add to this wide receiver core over the next year or two? Probably not that much. And so it's probably going to be, him, Ladd McConkey. Maybe they'll add like an impact tight end or something like that. They'll keep adding to the rush game most likely. I just wonder if he's going to kind of become more of a staple over time. Not very consistent, but okay. He's definitely worked out the hands thing a bit. Like, he's not dropping nearly as many passes. He's catching some out in front of him with his hands, not his body. So he's developing a bit. Not my favorite player, but wanted to shine just a little bit of light on him, considering he's going neck and neck with Marvin Harrison Jr. Year one for Marv.
Yeah, and just a shout out to, I think, the Chargers offense in general. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know who was I talking to. It must have been somebody on Twitter, but just like, oh yeah, it was a Chargers fan on Twitter. It just, that whole offense, it just seems different. Like, I mean, Justin Herbert seems like he's got some swag with him now. Harbaugh just seems to be like have brought some, I think, culture or whatever. Like, I just think it's changed. Culture. And so, like, I think the way that they want to run that offense, like, I don't think QJ is going to see a whole lot more targets than he's already getting, because it's just like it's kind of capped at what they're trying to do there, which is fine. But to see QJ doing well after pretty much everyone left him for dead, I'm pretty excited about. But that Chargers offense, I'm excited about. And Justin Herbert, definitely excited about him, because people were like leaving him for dead too. I mean, I mean, really, I mean, some of the trades, I mean, if we went back and looked at some of the trades that were made like before the season started or after week 1 or whatever, I bet that were crazy like value right now. And people are probably really upset at some of the trades they probably made sending Justin Herbert away. So wheels up on Justin Herbert. Like, we all knew he was pretty good. He's one of those like guys I always go back to when it comes to drafting rookie. This is kind of off the rails, but going back to drafting rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, and like not skipping over those guys in our rookie drafts, because Justin Herbert fell quite a bit.
Second round on a lot of the rookie drafts. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
I mean, sure, you'll have like your Mac Jones and stuff like that. That'll happen, but
there's quite a few off ramps of Mac Jones too, if you wanted them though.
That's right. You just got to take your shots. So
wheels up,
QJ, and Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, for sure. I just, we talked a lot this offseason and into the season about buying Justin Herbert. Like, we were trying to get him all over the place. I couldn't secure it. I tried my damnedest, honestly, before he kind of took off and bounced back. But we talked, we had the unfinished horse segment way back, talking about how, the team wasn't very good around him. And, he was either going to lift them up and be worth his cost or not. And I think he's done that, honestly. Like, I do think that he's lifted them up. And, all those players being ranked so much lower, you see it. Like, they're not doing that much. He's really lifting them up. I mean, they did get J.K. Dobbins back and all that, which has worked out. So some stuff has worked out for them for sure. But, when you see these things happening, like you got to strike, man. He has always been a fantastic quarterback and has always had to lift this team up, and we know it. And now we're seeing him very healthy. We're seeing him rush the ball more, goal line rushes with the team that kind of has that scheme that fits what they're trying to do. They have a really good O-line. Like it's all kind of coming together. And I really loved what I saw. I think it was posted in the Discord, but the whole thing about him carrying bricks in the offseason and strengthening his grip essentially for, securing the ball, those kind of things. And it was just like a story about, really the skill position players were the ones that were doing this drill where they're carrying bricks from one end of the field to the other for strengthening, the hands and the forearms, all that. And he's out there doing it too. And it's just that culture thing you're talking about, right? Like they've instilled the culture there and the players have really bought in and it matters. And so, we like to put it all into the numbers and all that, but the film, the culture, like those things do kind of matter. So you gotta try to account for those things and notice them, identify them when they're happening.
All right. Last one here before we get to our next topic. We have Christian McCaffrey declining. Well,
it's a question.
It is a question. So, I mean, the answer is, well, yeah. I mean, it's going to happen, right? But, I mean, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. He just came back from being hurt for the entire season. So, his first week back, like, you kind of expect he's probably going to guard himself from contact. I see what you saw here about him being more comfortable in running the routes. Like, that's what I noticed watching him. Like, anytime that he was getting the ball passed to him and he had a little bit of space to kind of do what he wanted to do with his body instead of, like, rushing the ball where like everybody's coming at you from different angles. He did seem more comfortable. I think he's going to be just fine this year. But he's definitely an asset that like if you made it this far and you're probably not contending, I'm not counting on Christian McCaffrey to pull my 6-win or 5-win team up, right? I think you need to sell him like now.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, he looked guarded, I think, when he was rushing the ball versus when he's getting the ball in open space. And I get that.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not crazy. And I do agree with you that, now's the time. Like he had a decent game here, not anything amazing, but as long as he's getting 7+ targets a game, he'll be just fine as a fantasy asset, and as long as he's healthy. But yeah, man, it was just I thought I was going crazy, but every time he had the ball, he was rushing the ball, he just seemed a little less dynamic. And I guess it's what you're saying. Maybe he seemed more guarded, where it's like, because also like the injury is the injury. I don't even know if we can call it an injury, really. It's been very preventative this whole time, but it's, Achilles. It's both his Achilles, tendonitis or whatever. So I'm wondering if like heading into a pile of people and pushing is something he's not really interested in doing right now.
100%.
And then I think, you see him run a route where he's upright and it just seems so much more comfortable and like digging in a little bit and, planting his foot and creating that dynamic separation. Like he's still got that. And so it's there. Maybe over time he feels more comfortable and whatnot, but it's definitely, it's not something that you want to see as a CMC manager. And it's just like you're saying, it's super concerning. So in terms of rostering this guy, like if you don't need him, or he's not a luxury, even if I don't even know. Like, I feel like if I'm a contender and I don't need him, which is often that's like not the case, and you probably feel like you do. But man, if you have enough depth, I would definitely, no matter what situation you're in, try to look around. I just bought a share of him on a team where I really felt like it helped my team. So there's certainly situations, don't get me wrong, but like from a macro perspective and just like on the whole, in a vacuum, as we like to say, I would like to be moving on from CMC if possible. Yes. And like, you could probably still swing a first in most situations, especially if you put a package together. But man, that's going to be tough. And I think I'd be comfortable with like a couple seconds in a developmental type player or something like that. Like whatever, man. If he gets injured, it's over. It's going to be very, very challenging to get off of this kind of asset. So yeah, get it while the getting's good.
All right. I like this. So broken buys. This is something we should talk about every year anyway. So with trade deadlines approaching, hopefully you don't have any, but there's probably plenty of leagues where you do.
Tons of them, yeah.
Are we buying injured players as rebuilders? And the answer is yes, you should be. In general. But
so here's are there any of your – okay, go ahead. Yeah. List them out.
Here's a list of guys. We have Chris Godwin, haven't. I still think about that injury because he's on one of my old ass teams that's like doing really, really well, and it's just like, but yeah, I mean, he was doing great. Chris Godwin, we have Stephon Diggs, Brandon Ayuk, JJ McCarthy, Rashid Rice, Chris Olave, and Jonathan Brooks. So, as rebuilders, are these players that you're trying to go after to get for the cheap? And I would say yes. Like I personally have acquired an Ayuk share. What else? Hollywood Brown was on there. It was one of those guys that I picked up because those points aren't going to affect my draft position anymore. But I have full confidence that they're not washed, right? Their careers aren't over.
Are there any that you're like not interested in?
I don't think I'd be looking for JJ McCarthy for any reason yet because there's no real reason to. It would depend on his price. Maybe you could look that up. Like, JJ McCarthy's not like one of those like, I know that if I get him now, he's gonna have a role next year and like be something. Like we don't really know. Sam Darnold's doing decent there in Minnesota, and I don't know if JJ McCarthy's actually better than him.
I mean, he hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, Sam Darnold.
I know. Well, that happens, right? So, but yeah, I think I'm good with adding any of these players if I'm on a rebuilding team. Like Chris Godwin, still got years left. Diggs, I don't think actually I would want anything up. I think I'm just out on Diggs. Even when he was healthy there in Houston, even though CJ Stroud's kind of having a sophomore slump right now, I don't think that Diggs is ever going to be the guy that, just going to be like your wide receiver 3 on most of your rosters, probably for the next year or two that he has in the league. Interested in Ayuk, interested in Rice, interested in Olave, and Jonathan Brooks. I don't even know what to think there. I just have no ideas, right? They gave Miles Sanders that big contract. Chuba Hubbard pretty much bust his first year, and now this is his 3rd year in the league, and he's coming back looking amazing. They drafted Jonathan Brooks, moved up for Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd, so he's sitting there, but he still hasn't really seen the NFL field. I just think that there's too much risk with Brooks, and I think there's too much risk with McCarthy because you're still going to be playing McCarthy superflex rookie quarterback kind of prices right now. So,
yeah, I mean that's a good point on McCarthy. No, it's all good stuff. It's a good point on McCarthy, who just had not a second knee surgery, but he just had a second procedure, we'll call it. Where
that's true.
He had some. It was like injection of probiotics. That's a stupid thing to say. It wasn't probiotics. It's a joke. But it was an injection of something. I forgot exactly what it was, but it was to help, I think, the healing. And he was having some swelling and all that stuff from the rehab. So, but to your point, his value hasn't really dipped that much. Like he's just behind Jared Goff right now, with the T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill. I mean, maybe if you could move off of like a Joe Mixon or something and get JJ plus, like that might work. I mean, obviously, like trading a running back for a quarterback is great, especially if you're a rebuilder and you don't want those Joe Mixon points. Like that's something I think you could probably get done. But yeah, to your point, I don't know if like the prices dip that much, and I don't know if it's going to be honest. And the issue I think is Sam Darnold isn't looking that great the past couple of weeks, so people are going to get encouraged. Like, all right, well, what can JJ look like? A guy who is reset kind of the whole situation over there in Minnesota and maybe, but there's no guarantee that he can be that much better. I mean, Sam Darnold is probably a much better prospect, has, all the talent in the world. So we'll see what happens there. But I think, if I can get him at the right price, I'd definitely be interested in McCarthy. I just don't think it's there. I'm interested in Brooks because I think this Chuba stuff is going to depress his value. Okay. I want to see exactly where it's at. I mean, he's in like the Keon Coleman range. Maybe not. I mean, yeah, you're still paying like a late first for him, and I don't know if that's something that we need to or want to be doing for Brooks. You may as well just wait to see what actually happens there before you pay that price. And he obviously could still come back this year, so I don't know if that's like the perfect situation for a rebuilder. I love the Godwin one. I'm definitely all in on that. I think he'll be fine. And this injury, like it was a bad like ankle injury, like it was completely contorted, but I don't think it's something that we should be too concerned about, his ability when he comes back. Rice, I'm all in buying Rice. I think that he's kind of been forgotten a little bit now, and I think you can swing some things for him. I'm really not so much in on Olave, and I know he's not like an IR, he's not on the IR or anything like that, but just like, having these conversations with Jake, and like he really has kind of swayed me a little bit, just with the concussion stuff with some of these players, like, and it, Tua is a specific situation because, it's quarterback. And while it's still very possible that, these guys get head injuries, and the way that he plays, still throwing his body at people like after interceptions and shit, it could definitely happen. But Olave is in the line of fire all the time. And he has a quarterback who's throwing him hospital balls all the time. Like, I don't know if I want to take on that kind of asset in general. So he's one who I'm kind of avoiding. Ayuk is a decent one, I think, that you can get for a pretty good cost. I'm kind of out on Diggs as a rebuilder. I don't think we need to be doing that. Even he'll have probably a little bit of a bounce back in value, but not really something I'm super, super interested in. So some of these guys, I think it's like really situational, and you need to kind of dissect like what these injuries are. Because like with Olave, it's like, yeah, it's not like a knee injury or anything, but these things can add up and get pretty bad for these kind of guys, the head injuries. So that's one, you just got to look at them as really specific situations and like what's going on there. But Lapisaurus, our friend from the Discord, as a rebuilding team, are you looking at those guys as point scoring players for next year, or players to flip come rookie draft or start a next season once they're healthy? That's a good question. I think guys like Godwin and Rice, I'm more looking to acquire to stay on my roster kind of and score points. I think maybe Ayuk, McCarthy, even Brooks, I think those guys I'd be looking more as maybe I can grab these guys low at some point in between now and the offseason and flip for something greater. Because like the value is going to rebound pretty significantly, I imagine, unless Brooks just sucks. And I think McCarthy, no matter what, I say Brooks just sucks because I think he could get he could get on the field this year, and we could actually see what he does. Now, we'll see there. But I think, like a guy like McCarthy, that's one where I think if you get him slightly low, he could have a serious rebound when he gets healthy again, and you start hearing about, how he's performing in camp and all those things, and maybe swing like, a pick plus in the upcoming draft. Ayuk, you probably have to wait a little bit longer, but he's also a guy who I think that, you can get pretty low and you might be able to sell pretty high down the road. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I'm no doctor, but I'm thinking this about like return to play, and you have guys like Godwin, Rice. Obviously Olave, those guys should be starting week 1 and fully healthy by then.
For sure.
Ayuk, you have to be patient with that. I don't, because his injury is more significant and he's a little bit older. So I think I would take into account that, right? So if I'm trying to answer the question, if I'm looking for the players to be on my roster next year, it's going to be those guys that have come back sooner: Godwin and Rice and Olave and Jonathan Brooks. But apparently his price is still a little pricey. So
definitely.
I just caution the whole acquire to flip later thing. I know we talk about it all the time, but it's a lot of work. So I'm always going to say that, so.
Yeah. And like, what are you gonna get Brooks for like a late first right now and sell him for 2 firsts in the future? No. Like, I don't think anybody's paying 2 firsts for Brooks, almost no matter how good he is on that putrid Panthers roster. So I think that, you need to be cautious in terms of like you got to get these guys at a pretty solid discount especially to do the buy and flip, right? Like, because then you can stomach holding on to them for a while and waiting for the opportunity. But if you purchase them at their near ceiling price, if you want to put it that way, then you're going to be just kicking yourself and trying to get off of them for like anything over that time. And that's not really what you want to do. You want to make a good ROI on these kind of things and find those windows where you can get them for a good value. And obviously these trade deadlines are a great opportunity where you can kind of stress a contender and be like, yo, let me give you some points and let me get this guy off your roster. And I think you can do a lot of that now. And there's also going to be, even in the in the no trade deadline leagues, there's going to be opportunity in a couple weeks as well, where they're like, oh, I'm pushing for the playoffs. I need that, that extra, that Russell Wilson, right? I need a quarterback to get me through, my week 14 buys or whatever it is, like, and you can play off that and sell them for way more than they're worth, and maybe get some of these kind of players, if they're not willing to sell, or send you picks for those kind of guys, they might be willing to, if you package something up, send you the players who are injured, thinking that, they're not going to be healthy by whatever time next year. And most of these guys are, like Uriah is talking about.
All right. Let's hop into some trades and non-trades.
Yes.
So we have from DU4 big boy trade. All right. So we have Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, and Jordan Mason. So 4 running backs. No, for Drake May, Brooks, Pearsall, Estime, Sinnott, 25, 26 first, and a 27 second.
I'm going to throw it up on the screen. Did you just say 4 running backs?
Yeah, I was joking.
Josh Allen a running back? That's hilarious. No, that's pretty good. I like that. It's funny.
So, Jordan Mason is decent handcuff there. I think 27 seconds seems kind of fair for that. 25, 26 first. That gets you Josh Allen, Drake May. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's clearly 2 teams with 2 different paths heading into the final weeks here. All right. So you have somebody trying to load up on some older guys who are producing. Christian McCaffrey with his backup, Jordan Mason, and Austin Eckler, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen stuff. Probably ends up being QB2, QB3 by the end of the season. But this is a perfect way to rebuild. You're trading off your Josh Allen, your CMC, your Austin Eckler, Jordan Mason, probably thinking that at the beginning of the season you had Josh Allen, CMC, Austin Eckler. You're thinking that you might be a contender. Probably by this time you're finding out, hey, I'm not a contender, so I need to rebuild. Switch over to Drake May, Josh Allen light, Jonathan Brooks. He's got wheels, man.
Your eyes on fire right now, boys and girls.
All right. I like it. I like the rebuilding side here. I think this is a really smart move. Moving off of Josh Allen, CMC, Austin Eckler, those type of players, like those are hard to do just because they've been so good to your team for so long. But at some point, you got to realize, I got to do something. And this is rebuilding your tight end spot, your running back spot, helping with your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 spot. You find yourself a decent quarterback 2, as far as we know right now. And you secured yourself 2 firsts and a second heading into 25, 26, and 27. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, this is my trade. I did not get the rebuilding side, as we're saying. I actually have been trying to sell some older players in DU4, but my team is performing really well. And I figured if the sell market's not really there, then I may as well lean into the contending market and see if I can take this league in year 1. And I also, for some context on my side of this, I had, I think, 2 firsts in both 25 and 26. So I think I may have had 1 first in 26, but definitely 2 in 25 and like 3 seconds I think 3 seconds at 26. So I felt okay, like moving off of some of the picks here, and they were my picks. So if I'm contending, I feel like they're going to probably be a little bit later at least. And so that's definitely the idea here for the Josh Allen side. Obviously, Josh Allen is the best player in this deal, and so I felt like I wasn't just giving up a lot for nothing. I felt like I was giving up 2 firsts in Drake May for Josh Allen pretty much. And then all the other stuff for, Brooks, Pearsall, Estime, Sinnott, and the 27 second, which was getting CMC back and Austin Eckler, and then CMC's handcuff in return. So I felt like I kind of covered myself a little bit by getting the handcuff there for CMC, even though, like I was saying earlier, it's not something I really want to take on that often. But I do agree. I think this is as like fair of a deal as you're going to get with this kind of trade as a rebuilder. I think that, getting Drake May and Brooks and Pearsall and 26, 25 for those are all good pieces. Like, they're quality dynasty pieces back for, what you're trying to do there. And you got to pick a lane. You got to really lean into it. And this is getting a ton of points off your roster while also looking into the future. So I love this trade all around. I never get trades this big done really for me. You and I are more of like the like piecemeal it type thing with the trades. Like we like to do like, one for two, 1 for 1, or add some picks and those kind of things. Like this one, I was like, we worked probably for like 2-3 days straight, like trying to get this worked out. And this is with our good friend Ethan, who's in the Discord and of course in Dynasty Underdog Listener League 4. And so it was really fun kind of going back and forth with him. He's really sharp with the shit too. So he's not going to take like nothing, he's not going to sell like too low most of the time. So I think this is like a really good template if you're in a league with these similar assets and you're, trying to add something for the competitive side, or you're trying to lean into the rebuilding side. Like this is a good template kind of thing. If you have similar players that match these guys to do. So I like my side. I think it gives me a really strong chance in DU4. I put up like 230 points this past week with this roster. So feeling pretty good about it for right now. We'll see how it works out as it goes. But fun trade for sure.
All right, next one, Bateman and Garrett Wilson, and a 4th for Higgins, Raheem Shaheed, and a 26th first.
Another DU4 trade right here happened right after this one. Again, we've talked about this before, cascading effect. One trade happens, people get juiced, another kind of smash deal kind of happens, right? Like this is another kind of splash deal, I should say, rather than a smash deal. It's like another splash trade. There's some good pieces in here being moved around. So I do think that the prior trade, once again, kind of impacted the subsequent trade here. But that aside, how do you feel about this one?
I think the thing is, I don't think that the Bateman Garrett Wilson side is doing a whole lot for you contending this year, which I'm assuming whoever's getting Bateman and Garrett Wilson is contending, maybe the wide receiver help. And I like both those players quite a bit. I know you don't like Bateman as much. I'm concerned about Garrett Wilson because it hasn't been the best go around for him there in New York this year. But I like the other side, the future side, right? You got your future 26 first. You have Rashid Shaheed should be back next year. And T. Higgins, wherever he ends up playing, should eat as long as he stays healthy. I like the Higgins side. I think it has a lot of potential to be very good for your roster moving forward. And then the Bateman Garrett Wilson side, like I like those players. I just don't see where it's helping your team a whole lot. I feel like I would have liked to see Higgins Shaheed in that first go for one blue chip player instead of Bateman and Wilson, who are nice, but I would have liked to see it for like one singular stud.
Yeah, no, I kind of ride with that. I'm right in line with what you're saying there. I'm trying to think kind of the kind of like a Puka or something like that, like maybe like in what you're saying, like a blue chip player kind of thing, or like not a Brian Thomas. That's not a good example either.
Or maybe
like AJ Brown,
like something. A DK, right? And you don't have to send that first over or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a second instead. Yeah, no, totally. I'm with you here. Like I mean, I'm a Higgins stan, so like maybe I'm a slightly biased here, but I think like Higgins in the 26th first over Garrett Wilson pretty easily for me. Mm-hmm. And I think even some of that value is covering the Bateman side, but you're also getting Shaheed, who I like same, same but different, but still the same kind of thing with Shaheed and Bateman, like very similar assets in like the grand scheme of things. And I think Shaheed Bateman's on a better team, but I think Shaheed has a little bit more upside week to week anyway, when healthy. But yeah, either way, I'm with you on this one. I like the first and Higgins pretty easily. And Garrett Wilson is still commanding this kind of value. He's very, very high in KTC still. He's like, where is he? Garrett Wilson, he's the 23rd player overall, like wide receiver 10. I'm not sure that that's deserving. Like, I don't really think that he deserves to be there. I think that that's quite a high price to pay. He should probably be below Drake London for me. Definitely below Kyler Murray. He should be below. I mean, I guess maybe he should be above A-Chain, but like it's damn close. Brian Thomas Jr. is breathing down his neck. There's quite a few players right here that I think could be ahead of him in that range. So I think his value is still a little bit inflated from the prospect profile, the hopium. And he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player. Like there's no doubt about it. He's a really good player, but I'm not sure the situation gets much better anytime soon. And so I think you'll reap the benefits of the Higgins 26 first side. And I still really think Higgins, man, like I do think some of this is him being really cautious because he's on this 1-year deal trying to get a big deal next year. And I really think that he could end up being a wide receiver 1 somewhere else. And if they do sign him back, he's going to catch a healthy stretch where he's just dominating. When he's healthy, the guy is awesome. Like he's going to score more points than Garrett Wilson a good portion of the time when he's healthy. So long-winded, but I really like that trade for the Higgins first side.
All right. Here's my trade. Super complicated as always.
Is this your trade?
It's my trade, yeah. So it's actually my first Connor share. So I traded a 25-second for Connor.
Okay, I thought I put this on here, but I guess you did. No, dude, actually, I'm kind of chatting with somebody about the same exact deal and acquiring Connor on kind of a competitive team. It's his bye week, so I'm waiting until next week because I'm on the fringe there and I need some help kind of making sure I can get into the playoffs. But I like that. I think that's what Connor's worth. I was trying to get him like Connor in a 4th or whatever, but that wasn't going. 25-second is exactly what he's worth, and I think that works pretty much both ways, and you're getting a really quality point-scoring player in Connor back. But I think that's what you can expect as a rebuilder too, is getting a second. Like you could try to push for a 3rd in it. You're not getting 2 seconds. You're not getting a 1st. Like this is what you're getting. So no. I think this is a great deal.
Yeah, a guy came out and said, hey, I have an RB1, James Conner. I don't want him on my team. You need points. I sent them over. I didn't even notice he accepted it right away. I noticed like 5 days later. So he must have accepted it like right away. I think I'm like 2nd or 3rd in the league on that team. So my second's going to be, 210 or something like that. So
yeah.
I thought it's worth, if Connor stays healthy, this could really help me finally win this damn league. Keep coming in second.
No,
so
that's a killer. That's even better than I thought. Cause like, I don't know, I feel like you just like, it's a mid-second in your head. You know what I mean? But the fact that it's most likely a late second, that's even kind of a steal for Connor. Like, might have been able to squeeze out a 3rd realistically from you, knowing that, it's a late pick. You probably would have bent the knee a little bit there and said, whatever, like take it.
I think I would have taken that. If he countered back the 3rd, I might have just said, all right, let's go. But
and you can't really blame either side again on that. So, I really like that deal. And I think that, we talk about this a lot in terms of like the 0 running back builds and stuff. And like, this is the time where you want to add that kind of player if you need the running back help, like at this point where kind of what you need. And this is just like the perfect player because you don't have to overspend for him. And he's going to give you that running back 1 production. And you can do this every year. You can find this kind of player. You really can. You can find this guy. And in most leagues, a rebuilder has one of them and you can snag, you can make a fair deal happen like this. So I love that. Last one here. This happened in a Devy league, but it doesn't matter because no Devy picks removed or anything, just 2 players. But Will Levis for Ben Sinnott. And I thought it was a super interesting trade because I don't think either side is very enticing at the moment, but I wanted to know what your thoughts were because I saw it come through my email and I was like, I don't like it, but I kind of get it maybe. Like, I don't know. What do you think about this?
I guess the way I'm going to look at it, we have a lot of hope for both these guys. I would just take the quarterback right now. Hopefully the person that got Will Levis this year, like maybe lost Dak for the season or something like that, right? So they're acquiring Levis for points for the rest of the year. And Sennett's a guy that you want to acquire and hope that, next year he becomes what we think he could be. It is interesting, but pretty much 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take the starting quarterback because we play super flex and that matters.
Yeah, and this is super flex. All these trades are obviously super flex. We play in very few 1 QB leagues, and we would mention that if so. But Yeah, man, this like I kind of get it with like going. This person I know has been sending out because I've received them offers for like Devi seconds and like anything, like literally just sending it out for, and it's not getting any bites. So I get kind of being frustrated and wanting to just get him off your roster. But I kind of agree with you. Like I just feel like there's other ways to get Ben Sinnott, and like you're really just kind of now waiting quite a bit to ensure that he's worth anything, really. Like I like
Yeah.
Benson, and I still think, whenever we see him out there, he's a good blocker. I think that he's run some decent routes when he has run routes. It hasn't been many, but he's behind Zach Ertz, and we know how that goes. We've seen this story before.
Seen it before.
I'm not concerned from that perspective. But again, like I just feel like, and he wasn't getting more for this than for Will Levis. Like he's been trying, but I just kind of feel like you got to get more or you got to hold them. I don't know. Maybe that's the sunk cost fallacy thing. I just feel like but I do understand. I do think that Benson, it's a quality player, a quality piece. And over time, he could win this trade by getting Benson. Will Levis could definitely not be the starting quarterback, or he's probably more likely to be a backup quarterback somewhere in the near future than he is to be a starting quarterback. But yeah, this one doesn't feel great on the surface. And so these are tough ones for sure. I think, sorry to keep this going and being long-winded, but like I have a knack for not doing this and holding on to players not too long, I would say, but being patient as shit and being like, I'm going to get more for this guy. And I think maybe it's just doing the extra work sometimes with these players, knowing that they're very tough assets to move and just constantly, and I know this guy has been trying, but like even more, like constantly sending offers and not this kind, you know what I mean? Where you're getting a little bit more back. Like I even wonder if he could have done Benson in like a Devi fourth, and this is unlimited, like Devi. Yeah. This is unlimited Devi. So there's no like cap on the amount of Devis per draft. So like, I think we have like fit up into like 5th round picks. Like I would rather, like I would feel much better if it was Ben Sinnott in like a 5th even, where you have a shot at getting a developmental player on top of this, a guy that you can target that's your own. And so, I think I would have been trying to shoot for something like that. And I wonder if this is one of those, which I've done before, right before bed or something like that. And you're like, I'm just going to send this trade, like I'm doing this. And then you wake up in the morning and it's accepted and you're like, why'd I do that? That's kind of what I feel like happened here. Like, obviously I don't know for sure, but it looks like that kind of trade. So be cautious out there, people.
All right. Anything else you want to get into?
No, we were competing with Thursday Night Football, so not really getting anything else, but it's 7-0. Washington's up. Let's see if they can pull it out and defeat the Eagles for this Cowboys fan over here. I know that both these teams you hate, but
a tie and some injuries.
Oh wow, Uriah hates these teams so much. He's hoping both quarterbacks go down. He's like, I don't want Jaden Daniels and I don't want Jalen Hurts any longer. He's like, if I have to suffer if my quarterback's out, then
not career ending, just like season.
No, just like an AC sprain or something on the left shoulder, not on the throwing shoulder. Yeah.
Here I am, a Cowboys fan, looking to the draft already. So here we go.
But so brutal. Oh man, that's okay. But one last time, shout out to the Discord. Shout out to anybody who joined live for the show tonight. Really, really appreciate y'all. Appreciate the comments always, and we really, really, really do love y'all in the Discord. I mean, it is our happy place, and so appreciate y'all. That's all.
Other than that, have a good night. You can find us on the Twitter box. Willie Beeman, FF, Uriah Dawkins, Jake Abrams, and at Dynasty Underdog, of course. Other than that, y'all have a good night.
You can follow me on Blue Sky too. Peace out. Later.